In the heart of a bustling city, nestled between towering skyscrapers and vibrant cafes, stood a luxurious apartment building known as the Grandview. Its polished marble facade gleamed in the sunlight, while the meticulously manicured gardens provided a serene escape from the urban chaos. Inside, the scent of fresh flowers wafted through the air, and the sound of laughter echoed in the lavish lobby, where the well-heeled residents mingled, exuding an air of sophistication and entitlement. The Grandview was home to an elite community of successful professionals, socialites, and affluent families, each with their own stories of wealth and ambition. The residents prided themselves on their status, often engaging in extravagant soirees, showcasing their latest acquisitions, and flaunting their connections. Among them were the likes of Richard and Vanessa, a power couple known for their high-profile jobs and extravagant lifestyle, Mrs. Thompson, an elderly widow with a penchant for gossip, and the flamboyant artist, Leo, whose eccentric fashion choices made him the center of attention at every gathering. Yet, amidst this opulence, there was one person who seemed to blend into the background, almost invisible to the residents, Clara, the building's janitor. With her worn-out uniform, practical shoes, and a mop in hand, she went about her daily tasks with unwavering dedication. Clara was a woman in her 50s, with a warm smile and kind eyes that belied the hardships she had faced throughout her life. She had taken the job at the Grandview a few years ago, hoping to provide for her family after her husband's untimely passing. As she cleaned the hallways, polished the ornate chandeliers, and emptied the trash bins, Clara often overheard snippets of conversation. The residents spoke of their latest vacations in exotic destinations, their designer wardrobes, and the exclusive events they attended. Clara would nod politely, offering a friendly greeting or a small smile, but her presence was often met with indifference. To the residents, she was merely a fixture of the building, a necessary part of their lives but not someone worthy of their attention or respect. Despite the lack of acknowledgement from the residents, Clara took great pride in her work. She cared deeply about the Grandview, ensuring that it remained a beautiful and welcoming place for everyone who lived there. While others viewed her as just a janitor, she saw herself as the guardian of the building's spirit, taking time to arrange the flowers in the lobby or leave a sweet note for the residents during the holidays. As the days turned into weeks, Clara found solace in her routine. She enjoyed her interactions with the occasional friendly resident, particularly the children who would wave at her as they passed by, oblivious to the class divide that separated them. In her heart, Clara held on to the hope that, one day, the residents would see her not just as a cleaner, but as a person with dreams, stories, and a life of her own. However, the dynamics of the Grandview were about to change, and Clara would soon find herself at the center of a surprising revelation that would challenge the very foundations of the residents' perceptions. For now, though, she continued her daily tasks, blissfully unaware of the storm that was brewing just beneath the surface of the seemingly perfect lives around her. Donna Clara woke each morning before the first rays of sunlight pierced the horizon. Her small apartment, tucked away on the outskirts of the city, was modest but filled with warmth. Framed photographs of her late husband and their children adorned the walls, serving as a constant reminder of the life they had built together. As she prepared for her day, she would often reminisce about the laughter shared, the challenges faced, and the love that had sustained her through the hardest of times. With a deep breath, Clara donned her well-worn uniform, a faded blue jumpsuit that had seen better days. It symbolized her commitment to her job at the Grandview, where she had become a familiar presence over the years. Armed with her trusty mop and a bucket of cleaning supplies, she set out for the day, ready to tackle the tasks that awaited her. Arriving at the Grandview, Clara was met with the usual hustle and bustle of the residents. The doorman, a jovial man named Mr. Jenkins, greeted her with a nod, acknowledging her presence as he opened the door for her. She appreciated his kindness, as it was one of the few gestures of recognition she encountered daily. Stepping into the grand lobby, Clara was greeted by the sight of crystal chandeliers shimmering overhead, reflecting the sunlight that streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Her daily routine involved sweeping the corridors, cleaning the common areas, and ensuring that the facilities were in pristine condition. While she scrubbed the floors and polished the furniture, Clara would often hear snippets of conversations from the residents. They discussed their latest achievements, shared gossip about one another, and planned extravagant parties. Sometimes, she would catch a glimpse of their luxurious lives, filled with designer clothes, expensive cars, and lavish dinners, all while she quietly worked in the background. Despite the wealth surrounding her, Clara found contentment in her humble existence. She took great pride in her work, believing that a clean and well-kept environment contributed to the happiness of the residents. She would often hum softly to herself as she worked, infusing the air with a sense of calmness that contrasted with the frenetic energy of the building's inhabitants. Clara had developed a unique bond with a few of the children living in the building. They would often run past her, their laughter ringing in the air like music. She would pause to engage with them, sharing small moments of joy. In return, they would offer her bright smiles and the occasional drawing, which she proudly displayed on the fridge in her apartment. These interactions were a reminder for Clara that kindness could bridge the gap between their worlds, if only for a short while. However, not all encounters were pleasant. Many residents treated her with indifference or outright disdain, viewing her as an invisible servant rather than a person. On numerous occasions, Clara overheard dismissive comments about her appearance, her job, and her socio-economic status. It pained her to hear such remarks, but she learned to wear her resilience as armor. Each day, she focused on her tasks, determined to maintain her dignity amidst the mockery. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, Clara would finish her shift, satisfied with the work she had accomplished. With her head held high, she would leave the grand view, her heart heavy but hopeful. She knew that her life was far from glamorous, yet she held on to the belief that every individual, regardless of their role, deserved respect and kindness. Little did she know, her journey was about to take an unexpected turn, challenging everything she thought she knew about herself and her place in the world. The facade of normalcy was about to shatter, revealing the hidden truths that lay beneath the surface of the luxurious building she had come to know so well. One evening, the grand view was alive with the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses. The residents had gathered in the penthouse suite for an extravagant party hosted by Richard and Vanessa, a couple known for their lavish soirees that showcased their wealth and social status. The aroma of gourmet food wafted through the air, and the soft notes of live music filled the room, creating an atmosphere of opulence and celebration. As Clara made her usual rounds, cleaning the common areas and ensuring everything was in order for the evening's festivities, she could hear the muffled sounds of the party from the lobby. She paused momentarily, a sense of longing washing over her. She had seen the beautiful decorations, the elegant attire of the residents, and the joy radiating from their faces. In that moment, she felt the weight of her own reality, a stark contrast to the lives of those who lived in the building. Clara continued her work, trying to focus on the tasks at hand. However, her ears caught snippets of conversation drifting from the party. She could hear laughter followed by a sharp comment that pierced through her heart like an arrow. "Did you see Clara today? She looks like she just rolled out of bed," one resident snickered, followed by a chorus of laughter. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she forced herself to keep cleaning, pretending not to hear. Another voice chimed in, "I honestly don't understand how someone can be so content with such a mundane job. It must be so boring to clean up after us all day." The laughter continued, echoing in her mind as she scrubbed the floor, each stroke feeling heavier than the last. It felt as though the laughter was directed at her, a mockery of her existence. The comment stung, but Clara had learned to build walls around her heart. She reminded herself of her worth, of the dignity she held despite the judgments of others. Yet that evening, the cruel words lingered longer than usual. She felt a rush of emotions, anger, sadness, and a deep sense of isolation. It was one thing to be overlooked, but to be openly ridiculed felt like a betrayal from a community she had dedicated herself to serve. As the night wore on, Clara finished her work and prepared to leave. She walked past the party, her heart heavy with the weight of their laughter. Some of the residents glanced her way, but their smiles faded into indifference as they returned to their conversations. She couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider, a mere shadow in a world that didn't seem to accept her. As she exited the Grandview, the cold air hit her like a splash of water, jolting her back to reality. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of her purpose and the value of her work. Clara had always believed that kindness and hard work were the true measures of a person's worth, not their social status or wealth. Yet, that belief was being tested in ways she hadn't anticipated. The hurtful comments weighed heavily on her mind as she made her way home. She replayed the laughter and derision in her head, vowing that she would not let their words define her. Clara was determined to rise above the disdain, to embrace her identity with pride. Little did she know that the very circumstances that caused her pain would soon lead to a revelation that would change her life forever. The days turned into weeks, and Clara continued her routine at the Grandview, navigating through the hurtful comments and the indifference of the residents with quiet determination. Each day felt like a battle, but she held on to her dignity, reminding herself of the purpose behind her work. However, beneath the surface, a storm was brewing, one that would soon unravel the very fabric of her existence. One fateful afternoon, as Clara was cleaning the storage room in the basement of the Grandview, she stumbled upon a dusty old box tucked away in the corner. Intrigued, she pulled it out and brushed off the layers of dust that had accumulated over the years. The box was adorned with intricate carvings and looked like it had a story to tell. Clara's heart raced with curiosity as she opened it, revealing a collection of old documents, photographs, and letters. As she sifted through the contents, her fingers grazed over a faded photograph that caught her eye. It was a picture of a young woman standing proudly in front of the Grandview, her smile radiant and filled with hope. Clara's heart skipped a beat. She recognized the woman instantly. It was her mother, a woman she had lost many years ago. The realization hit her like a wave, and she felt a rush of memories flooding back. Her mother had often shared stories of how the building was once owned by their family, a cherished legacy that had been passed down through generations. Clara's family had lived there before her father's unfortunate demise and the subsequent loss of the property due to financial struggles. The memories of laughter and warmth in that building haunted her, and she had long accepted that the life they once had was a thing of the past. But as Clara continued to delve deeper into the box, she uncovered documents that revealed a shocking truth. Her mother had left the building to Clara in her will, a will that had been buried under layers of bureaucracy and forgotten amidst the chaos of life. The building, the Grandview, was legally hers all along, a reality that Clara had never fathomed. As the weight of this revelation settled upon her, Clara felt a surge of emotions, joy, disbelief, and a flicker of anger towards the residents who had dismissed her so easily. She had lived as an invisible woman in her own home, unaware that she was the rightful owner of the very place that had marginalized her. The knowledge ignited a fire within her, a desire to reclaim her identity and assert her place in a world that had overlooked her for far too long. In that moment, Clara made a decision. She would no longer hide in the shadows or allow others to dictate her worth. With her mother's legacy in her hands, she felt empowered to confront the residents of the Grandview and reveal her true identity. The time had come for her to step out of the darkness and into the light, to show them that she was not just the janitor they had mocked, but the true owner of the building they called home. As she closed the box and looked around the storage room, Clara felt a sense of purpose wash over her. She was ready to embrace her heritage and the responsibilities that came with it. The next chapter of her life was about to unfold, and she was determined to make her mark, not just for herself, but for the memory of her mother and the legacy that had been unjustly overshadowed. With the revelation of her true identity as the rightful owner of the Grandview, Clara felt a newfound sense of determination coursing through her veins. She spent the next few days preparing for what would be a pivotal moment in her life, a confrontation with the residents who had belittled her for so long. As she walked through the halls of the building, she envisioned how she would reveal her identity, each step echoing with the weight of her purpose. However, the atmosphere within the Grandview was about to shift dramatically. Unbeknownst to Clara, the residents were making plans of their own. Richard and Vanessa, who had always sought to maintain their social standing, had decided to initiate a major renovation of the building. They viewed Clara as an obstacle to their plans, believing that her presence could hinder their grand vision of transforming the Grandview into an even more luxurious residence. The couple had taken it upon themselves to convene a meeting with the other residents, discussing potential changes that would elevate the building's status and make it more exclusive. They spoke dismissively of Clara, referring to her as just a cleaner, and questioning how she could possibly understand the needs of the affluent community. Their comments echoed the same hurtful sentiments Clara had overheard before, reigniting the anger and frustration she had been trying to suppress. As the meeting approached, Clara felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. She knew that the residents would be gathering to discuss the renovations, and she planned to attend, ready to assert her ownership and confront their misconceptions. But the thought of facing those who had mocked her made her heart race with apprehension. Would they accept her revelation, or would they continue to dismiss her as they always had? On the day of the meeting, Clara donned a simple yet elegant outfit, a subtle nod to her new role as the owner of the Grandview. She arrived early, taking a moment to gather her thoughts before stepping into the large conference room filled with the residents. The room was adorned with polished wood and modern decor, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within her. As she entered, the chatter among the residents came to an abrupt halt. Eyes turned towards her, filled with surprise and confusion. Clara took a deep breath, steadying herself as she approached the front of the room. Richard and Vanessa exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from surprise to disdain. "Thank you for gathering here today," Richard began, attempting to regain control of the meeting. "As you all know, we have exciting plans to enhance the Grandview, but first, we need to address some concerns regarding our current staff." Before he could finish, Clara interjected. "Actually, there's something I need to address first." Her voice was steady, surprising even herself. The room fell silent, all eyes on her as she gathered her courage. "I am Clara, and I am the rightful owner of this building," she declared, her heart pounding in her chest. "My mother left the Grandview to me in her will, and I have come to reclaim my inheritance." Gasps rippled through the room as the residents processed her words. Richard's face flushed with disbelief, while Vanessa's eyes narrowed in skepticism. "You're joking," Richard scoffed, trying to dismiss her claim. "You're just a janitor." Clara's resolve strengthened in the face of their derision. "I may have been a janitor, but I am also the owner of this building. I have the documents to prove it." She pulled out the papers she had found in the storage room, holding them up for everyone to see. The room erupted into chaos as the residents exchanged murmurs of shock and disbelief. Clara felt a surge of adrenaline as she fought to maintain her composure. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment to show them who she truly was. As the confrontation escalated, Clara knew she had to stand her ground. She was no longer just a nameless face in the background, she was a woman reclaiming her legacy and demanding the respect she deserved. The conflict had begun, and little did the residents know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would challenge their perceptions and reshape their community. The atmosphere in the Grandview had shifted dramatically following Clara's revelation. While the initial shock among the residents lingered, a sense of tension hung in the air as they grappled with the reality of her ownership. Richard and Vanessa, who had once been the voices of authority within the building, now found themselves in a precarious position. The very foundation of their plans for renovation and exclusivity was threatened by the woman they had so easily dismissed. In the days following the meeting, Clara embraced her new role with determination. She sought to understand the building's needs, meeting with contractors, and evaluating the residents' desires for the future of the Grandview. She realized that while some residents were supportive, others remained skeptical, still clinging to the old perceptions they held of her. To bridge the gap and foster a sense of community, Clara decided to host a grand event, a gathering that would celebrate the building's heritage and bring the residents together. The idea was to create an open dialogue, allowing everyone to voice their concerns and share their visions for the Grandview's future. Clara believed that through unity, they could transform not just the building, but also their relationships with one another. As plans for the event began to unfold, Clara poured her heart into the preparations. She envisioned a warm and inviting atmosphere, complete with decorations that reflected the building's rich history. Clara reached out to local vendors for catering and enlisted the help of the children from the building to create handmade invitations. She wanted everyone to feel included, especially those who had been overlooked in the past. On the day of the event, Clara's nerves were palpable. The Grandview's lobby was transformed into a vibrant space filled with colorful decorations, twinkling lights, and the tantalizing aroma of delicious food. She had arranged for a local band to play music, hoping to create an atmosphere of joy and celebration. As the residents began to arrive, Clara greeted them with a genuine smile, eager to showcase her vision for the building. Richard and Vanessa, although still skeptical, attended out of curiosity. They stood off to the side, whispering to one another as they observed the festivities unfold. As the evening progressed, Clara took to the stage, her heart racing with anticipation. She welcomed everyone, expressing her gratitude for their attendance and sharing her vision for the Grandview. "This building is not just a collection of apartments, it's a home, a community," she said, her voice steady. "I want us to work together to make it a better place for all of us." To her surprise, the response was overwhelmingly positive. Residents began to share their own stories, expressing their hopes and dreams for the Grandview. The air was electric with a sense of camaraderie, as laughter and conversation flowed freely. Clara felt a sense of belonging that she had longed for since she first started working there. However, not everyone was convinced. Richard and Vanessa watched the gathering with skepticism, their expressions hardening as they observed the residents rallying around Clara. They exchanged glances, realizing that their plans for exclusivity were slipping away as Clara's vision of community began to take root. As the evening came to a close, Clara encouraged the residents to share their ideas for the future of the Grandview. A lively discussion ensued, filled with suggestions for improvements, community events, and ways to enhance the building's charm. Clara felt a surge of hope. This was what she had envisioned, a space where everyone felt valued and heard. But the night was not without its challenges. As the conversation grew lively, Richard finally spoke up, attempting to undermine Clara's newfound influence. "This is all well and good, Clara, but we need to think about the value of our investments. Can we really trust someone like you to make decisions for the Grandview?" His words cut through the excitement, attempting to sow doubt among the residents. Clara took a deep breath, refusing to let his comment overshadow the progress they had made. "I may have started as the janitor, but I am also the owner of this building. I am committed to ensuring that the Grandview thrives, not just for the sake of investments, but for the community we all share." With those words, Clara solidified her stance. The residents, witnessing her confidence and conviction, began to rally behind her once more. The event had not only brought them together but had also ignited a sense of purpose that would challenge the status quo. As the night ended, Clara felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had taken a significant step toward transforming the Grandview into a place where everyone felt at home. Yet, she knew that the battle for acceptance and respect was far from over. The real test lay ahead, and she was prepared to face whatever challenges would come her way. In the aftermath of the grand event, Clara felt a wave of hope wash over her. The atmosphere within the Grandview had noticeably shifted, with many residents expressing their support for her vision and newfound role as the owner. However, as the initial excitement began to settle, the reality of the division within the building became increasingly evident. While some residents embraced Clara's leadership and the idea of fostering a true community, others remained skeptical and resistant. Richard and Vanessa, in particular, were determined to undermine Clara's authority. They were not willing to concede their influence so easily, and their disdain for her grew stronger as they witnessed her gaining traction among the residents. In the days following the event, Clara found herself at the center of both admiration and animosity. Supporters began to rally around her, eager to collaborate on projects that would enhance the Grandview. They proposed ideas for community gardening, neighborhood events, and even book clubs that would bring residents together. Clara felt a sense of belonging among those who believed in her vision, a stark contrast to the isolation she had felt before. However, the opposition was equally vocal. Richard and Vanessa worked to sow seeds of doubt among the more affluent residents, claiming that Clara lacked the experience and education necessary to make sound decisions for the building. They whispered behind her back, suggesting that her humble beginnings disqualified her from leadership. She may own the place, but can she truly understand our needs? Richard would say, his voice dripping with condescension. Some residents began to waver, caught in the crossfire of conflicting opinions. Those who had previously supported Clara felt the pressure to align with the more established voices, fearing that siding with her might jeopardize their own standing within the community. Clara could sense the tension, but she refused to be deterred. She had come too far to allow the whispers of doubt to undermine her efforts. Determined to prove herself, Clara organized a series of open forums, inviting residents to discuss their concerns and share their ideas for the Grandview. She believed that transparency would foster trust and unity, but the forums quickly became contentious. Richard and Vanessa attended each meeting, strategically voicing their criticisms while attempting to sway the opinions of others. Do we really want to risk the value of our homes by allowing someone with no experience to make decisions? Richard would assert, his tone authoritative. We need to think carefully about who we're entrusting with our investments. In contrast, Clara stood firm, reminding the residents of the importance of community. I may not have a fancy title, but I know this building inside and out. I understand the value of creating a home where everyone feels welcome, not just a place for the wealthy to flaunt their status. Despite the tension, Clara remained focused on her vision. She reached out to those who had previously supported her, encouraging them to share their stories and ideas publicly. One by one, residents began to voice their experiences, recounting how Clara had made a positive impact on their lives, whether through small acts of kindness or her genuine efforts to listen. As more residents began to speak out in her favor, the tide slowly started to turn. Clara felt a renewed sense of hope as she witnessed the community rallying together, united by a shared desire for a more inclusive and supportive environment. Yet, the battle was far from over. Richard and Vanessa were not ready to relinquish their influence, and Clara knew they would fight tooth and nail to maintain their status. In the midst of the turmoil, Clara found strength in the support of her newfound allies. They encouraged her to stay true to herself, to embrace her identity as both a janitor and the owner of the Grandview. Clara realized that she was not just fighting for her place in the building, she was fighting for the future of a community that had the potential to thrive if only they could overcome their divisions. As the tension escalated, Clara prepared for the next confrontation, knowing that the stakes were higher than ever. It was not just about her ownership, it was about creating a space where everyone felt valued and respected, regardless of their background. The true test of her resolve was just beginning, and Clara was determined to meet it head-on. As Clara continued to navigate the complexities of her newfound role, the tension within the Grandview reached a boiling point. The ongoing conflict between her supporters and the faction led by Richard and Vanessa was palpable, creating an atmosphere thick with uncertainty and animosity. Clara knew that she needed to find a way to bridge the divide and foster a sense of unity among the residents, but it was proving to be a monumental challenge. The open forums Clara had organized had sparked conversations, but they also laid bare the deep-seated biases and prejudices that existed within the community. Some residents were willing to embrace change and support Clara, while others clung to the old ways, fearful of the shift in power dynamics. Richard and Vanessa continued to capitalize on this fear, spreading doubt and misinformation to erode Clara's growing influence. In a particularly heated forum, Richard stood up, his voice dripping with condescension. Clara, while we appreciate your enthusiasm, we must prioritize the financial stability of the building. Can we really trust someone who has only ever been a janitor to understand the complexities of managing the Grandview? His words cut through the room, eliciting nervous murmurs of agreement from some residents. Clara felt her heart race, but she refused to back down. I may have started as a janitor, but I know this building better than anyone. I understand the needs of our residents, and I am committed to creating a community that values every voice, regardless of their background, she replied, her voice steady despite the pressure. The meeting continued, but Clara felt the weight of Richard's words lingering in the air. She knew that she had to take action to prove her worth and show the residents that she was capable of leading the Grandview into a new era. Inspired by the stories shared during the forums, Clara decided to organize a community event that would showcase the diverse talents and backgrounds of the residents, highlighting the unique contributions each person could make to the building. The event, titled The Grandview Showcase, would feature art, music, and culinary delights from the residents themselves. Clara envisioned a celebration of culture and community, a way to bring everyone together and foster connections. She reached out to residents, encouraging them to participate by sharing their talents and stories. As the date approached, excitement began to build, but so did the opposition. Richard and Vanessa launched a campaign to dissuade residents from participating, spreading rumors that the event would be a waste of time and resources. Why should we celebrate mediocrity? Vanessa sneered to a group of residents in the lobby, her tone dismissive. We should be focusing on elevating the Grandview, not indulging in trivialities. Clara caught wind of their comments, but she refused to let them deter her. She worked tirelessly to prepare for the event, rallying her supporters and encouraging them to reach out to their neighbors. Slowly, more residents began to express interest in participating, drawn in by Clara's passion and vision for a more inclusive community. On the day of the showcase, Clara felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. The lobby of the Grandview was transformed into a vibrant space filled with art displays, food stalls, and live music. Residents showcased their talents, from painting and photography to baking and performing. Clara watched as families mingled, children laughed, and connections were made. It was everything she had hoped for and more. However, Richard and Vanessa were not about to let the event go uncontested. They arrived, arms crossed, and surveyed the scene with disdain. "This is a distraction," Richard declared loudly, drawing attention to himself. "We should be focusing on real improvements, not this circus." Clara felt a surge of determination as she approached them. "This is not a distraction, Richard. This is a celebration of our community, of our diversity. We are stronger together, and this event shows that." The tension between them was palpable, and Clara could sense the eyes of the residents on them. In that moment, she realized that her fight for acceptance was not just about her ownership but also about challenging the entrenched attitudes that had long dictated the dynamics within the Grandview. As the showcase continued, Clara noticed a shift among the residents. They began to rally around her, voicing their support and expressing their appreciation for the opportunity to come together. Richard and Vanessa's attempts to undermine the event were falling flat, and Clara felt a renewed sense of hope. By the end of the day, Clara had succeeded in bringing the community together in a way she had only dreamed of. The Grandview Showcase was a resounding success, and even some of the more skeptical residents began to see the value in Clara's vision for a united community. The event had not only celebrated their individual talents but had also laid the groundwork for a more inclusive future. As Clara reflected on the day's events, she knew that the fight for acceptance was far from over. Richard and Vanessa would not back down easily, and there would be more challenges ahead. But she felt invigorated by the support of her neighbors and the sense of belonging that had blossomed within the Grandview. Clara was ready to face whatever lay ahead, armed with the knowledge that she was no longer just a janitor but a leader in her community.